Greetings to my friends, to our community, to our students, and to our wonderful everyone in listening earshot. Thank you for entrusting us with this morning so that we can learn together and grow together. I see learning and growing as the same. We see that synonymous. And with Sweet Honey in the Rock's opening song, who talk about us fighting and struggling and learning as we grow. That is the epitome of our learning community. That is how we want to see everyone struggling with new knowledge, new information, and being willing to allow it to get in your body and massage your system so that we can grow into our best self. That's what this is all about. We have a special guest today, so I want to thank Tara Hardy, our own Tara Hardy from Evergreen State, Olympia. Now, Tara Hardy is a working class, queer femme, disabled poet. And, you know, I just got to stop at that because that's awesome. All right? This is her identity. She is also an author, so our author in residence is going to have some company today. She wrote a book called My. I think they were 5 my's if I got that right. And this book won a Washington State Book Award. She has also worked in social justice movements most of her life and currently teaches writing for the University Beyond Bars, the Hugo House, and now Evergreen State College to Olympia. Hello, Tara, and welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we're happy to have you, Tara. Tara came to our Lyceum last year and gave us a talk about neurodiversity. And I think our campus has never been the same since. So we were looking forward to having you visit with us today, and we just welcome your words of encouragement. So welcome. All right. And then I want to introduce you today because a lot of the reason we do this work in the virtual lecture series is to invite our current students, of course. Also our alumni. We know that our alumni are lifelong learners. We want you in the door at all times. We want you to know that you belong here and that this is a lifelong journey, not just for the 2 or 3 years that you are here. We also do this for our community because we know that out in the community, even though you may not be enrolled at Evergreen State College, you're still a part of us. And we have to do the thinking together so that we can grow and become a stronger, more resilient community in time. And I believe Tacoma has something to teach the world about how to hunker down and be a village and how to be resilient in the long term. And so I think we are in a beautiful place. But one of the most important reasons we do the virtual lecture series also is that we are looking for prospective students. And the person in charge of that is our recruitment and student affairs coordinator, Natasha Lemke. Hello, Natasha, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Marsha Tataranga. I want to say welcome to everybody and thank you for joining today. We're so excited to have you here. It is lovely to have folks from our Olympia campus as well as folks that come from our our Native Pathways programs and just to have us together as a community. We're looking forward to not only you sharing this experience with us, but you telling others about it. I think that's the key, is that the Tacoma program was built a lot through hard work and word of mouth. So if you share with folks this amazing opportunity, it's also available after we finish today on our YouTube channel. So please share. We are still admitting for fall quarter, and we are waiving that $50 application fee. So contact me. I'll also be sticking around afterwards to answer questions and to help folks along with that process. We're looking forward to having a big, robust fall quarter, and we look forward to having that opportunity through you sharing this experience with others as well. So thank you. My name is Natasha Lemke. I always forget to introduce myself because I'm so used to just starting talking. So welcome. I'm the Student Services Coordinator and Recruiter, and I'm glad to have you with us. I do want to introduce our speakers for today. I'm so excited. I've had the pleasure of meeting both of these lovely women who are amazing in the work that they do for the college. And so I want to introduce Dr. Jeannette Smith, who is currently our Director of Student Activities in the College Activities Building at Evergreen. And she is a scholar practitioner with 15 years of experience in higher education with a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism, a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership, and a PhD in Educational Leadership from the University of Nevada, Reno. Jeannette's research interests include policy, equity, financial aid, and student development. As a first-generation woman of color, Smith has a passion for supporting students with marginalized identities. Not only do we get to hear from Jeannette Smith, Dr. Jeannette Smith, we also get to hear from Dr. Cholee Gladney, who is a Dean of Inclusive Excellence and Student Success at Evergreen, where she has served since May 2019. Previously, she served in academic and career advising at Evergreen, first as an advisor and later as an associate director. So congratulations on that step up. Cholee brings a deep knowledge of Evergreen and the broader Olympia community to her work, using strengths-based mentoring, creative facilitation, and strategic leadership to support our diverse students and staff. So I want you to both welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you today. Jeannette, I can't wait to hear what you have to say as well as you, Cholee. So let's get it started, Jeannette.
Yay, good morning. Thanks, Natasha, and thank you everyone for having us. Really excited to be here. As Natasha said, my name is Jeannette Smith. I use she, her pronouns, and I just celebrated my 3rd year at Evergreen. I'm really excited to see what year 4 brings going into this year. When we were talking with Dr. Arunga about how we could be helpful today, one of the things that she said was to talk about team building, but also talk about where I come from, who I am, how I got here. We have about 20 minutes for me to get into that. I'm hopeful that I have blended these two goals together for y'all today by taking a little bit of a twist on what team building means to me. And I've also sent a link to Trey Applegate, our fabulous tech person today, to the script. So if you need to read along with what I'm reading for accessibility purposes, please feel free to reach out and Trey can send you that link. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right, so for our time together, I'm going to talk about the teams that I have been on and encourage you to think about who is on your team. I'll also add, I was thinking about sharing my story and really thinking about our new students and the students at Tacoma. So this is really geared towards them, but thank you everybody else for being here as well. On the screen, you should see 3 images. That's me and my chunky, cute self in the middle. I was real cute. And the 2 people on the side are Zanny and Lula Pearl Pinkard. They are my great-great-grandparents on my mama's matrilineal side. And they worked as a team in Texas. They are the ancestors that we can go back to in our family. It's as far as back as we can go is this team of people. And I'm humbled when I think about them working together as a team to raise a family in Texas near the Arkansas border and what it was like for them. And I'm in awe of the teams of people that it took for me to be here, and I'm appreciative of them. Our people are scattered all over, mostly concentrated in Texas. Houston, Meher, Lubbock, Texarkana, and Dallas. And my mama and her 9 brothers and sisters eventually ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I was born. She and my biological father had 2 babies before me who did not survive past 2 weeks old. But as a team, they kept trying and they stayed together and they stuck it out. And eventually I came along and they supported each other as a team when I was being real stubborn and difficult and caused my mama to go on bed rest for 4 months. And then I was stubborn again and didn't want to come out. And my mama needed an emergency surgery. So they had to stay united as a team and really advocate for one another at the hospital. She had an illegal C-section in a nearby Catholic hospital. It was the closest place they could get to. And she had a medical team of doctors, nurses, and staff who also illegally saved her life by tying her tubes so she wouldn't bleed out. And her medical team made a decision together to go against hospital policy, saving us both. Eventually, the three of us relocated back to Texas for a bit until my mama left my father. He had served in the Army on teams that did things that haunted him, and he turned to various addictions to keep those ghosts at bay. And my mama wanted none of that. So she moved back to Denver, where she met the person I would grow up calling dad. Now, growing up with the person who I knew as dad was the stuff of cautionary after-school movies. He too had his addictions and afflictions, causing our family to not really be united as a team. We moved a lot. First, he isolated my mama from her team of brothers and sisters by moving us to Las Vegas. And Vegas is where I went to school and where I grew up. So sometimes we had nowhere to stay. Sometimes we had no food to eat. But I had a group of friends whose parents knew about my family situation, and they formed a team without my knowledge to take care of me. And these are a few pictures of a few of those people, as well as some awkward photos from my youth. These parents made sure that I was taken care of. And as a team, they worked behind the scenes without me knowing. And they worked with my mama. So I wasn't allowed to do a lot of the traditional type sleepovers or hangouts or anything, especially with people my parents did not know. But this small team of parents of my friends would be contacted by my mama. So if we had nowhere to go or nowhere to be, my parents would ride the cat bus all night, but I would be at a sleepover. Or if we had nothing to eat, I would be invited randomly for dinner, lunch, breakfast, and I'd be sent home with leftovers and snacks. And that's what my family would eat. In high school, my best friends would drive us to pawn shops so we could sell things to pay for basic needs. And my friends would come together with their allowance to help us pay our rent. I started working at age 14 at Wild Oats. It was so cute. It was a bougie little all-natural grocery store that eventually would be bought out by Whole Foods. But my work team at Wild Oats pulled tips together to buy me a jacket because they would watch me get on and off the bus for work without one. And Vegas is a desert, so it's either really hot or it's really cold. And when it's really cold, it's freezing. To get away from the violence and abuse I was experiencing at home, I joined lots of teams in high school. I was on the debate team, I was on the dance team, I ran cross country, I started a hiking club, I was on the yearbook team, you name it, I did it as a means of escape and as a means of coping and as a means of building myself up as a student to get into college because my mama kept telling me if I could get to school, my life might be different. And I don't know why she thought that because no one else in my family had gone to college. But my mama had dropped out of high school at age 14 and she didn't have a GED. And she worked as a maid in casinos that no longer exist. Sidebar, when a casino is imploded in Vegas, it's a whole event. Like there's fireworks, there's food trucks, everyone goes out to watch. It's like Vegas style to watch this whole countdown of casinos come down. But then there's all these workers who now are displaced and have to find work elsewhere. So my mom also worked lots of side jobs, keno tables, fast food restaurants. And we lived off of the tips that tourists would give. During the low season, she had to work 2 or 3 jobs to fill in the gaps because sometimes my dad was around and sometimes he wasn't. I was at home by myself a lot. And ever since kindergarten, this is something that my teachers and my counselors knew. So again, I did not know it, but there was a full-on team of educators looking out for me. They were tracking our addresses, and when we didn't have addresses, and every time we moved, they would get in touch with me to make sure that I knew which bus to catch. This team of educators looked out for me, and lots of kids like me. I was called into the office once to receive an eye exam and get a free pair of glasses that I did not know I needed. I'm so blind. And it didn't occur to anyone that was even a need until I got the glasses and could actually see what was happening in the classroom. I would get these cute blue and red tickets so I could eat breakfast and lunch for free. I received clothes and toys and supplies at Christmas time. I never paid for field trips. My debate coach once came to my home with a typewriter that I could have that she said was stored away in her closet, not being used, because she knew that I was staying out late at libraries to get my homework done. And when my dad sold that typewriter for his next fix, my debate coach took my mom and I out for dinner. So I learned a lot by watching her mentorship and leadership, and how she managed our debate team, and what compassion looked like, and what anonymity looked like. I had a team of counselors who walked me through completing the FAFSA, and they introduced me to this woman named Margot. She was a recruiter for the University of Nevada, Reno. And Margot looked at my transcripts and involvement, and she looked me straight in the eye and she said, "Are you poor?" Which really caught me off guard because I wasn't ready for people to know about my home life. But she knew because she had been talking with my education team that I didn't know about. I said, "Yes." And she said, "All right, you're going to college. With these grades and this involvement, we'll get you there." And what I liked about UNR was that it was 8 hours away from home, but it was in state. So I qualified for the first class to receive the Millennium Scholarship. It was this all expenses paid for Nevada residents. And I had no clue what I was doing or how to do it. We did not have trio counselors at my school. I didn't know what Dean's Future Scholars was, or McNair or Upward Bound. And when I did learn about them, I was shocked. I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's all these teams of people working to support students. All I knew at the time was that Margot was part of a team of people who said I could go to college, and I believed them. And while this was happening, my mama was working with her own team of people to leave my dad. So when I got in my roommate's car to drive north that summer, my mama was free and she was safe. She still continued to work as a maid, but she was no longer in fear or hunger or housing insecure. And I'm grateful to the team that worked with her to make that happen. So in college, I continued to do all the things, and I won't get into that story much here. I can tell you that this time last year, I was preparing to present a paper at the University of Helsinki in Finland called "When Trauma Goes to College." And it's a story I'm still perfecting and working on, that's not quite ready yet. What I can tell you is that working on campus as a student led me to student affairs work in the field that I'm in now. So this photo is a team of people I worked with for 1 week in a program called Leadership. I only knew 3 of the people in the photo, and everyone else came from other places. We came together as a team, laid out our values and goals. We built a 3-day program. Our students showed up to complete that 3-day program. And as a team, we supported each other in helping our students answer tough questions about their own values, beliefs, and leadership. It was great because we were both participants or team members and facilitators or team leaders. And we would rotate between those roles. It was during the time when I was participating that I decided I wanted to go for my doctorate. So this photo is from when I worked outside of Chicago, and I leaned into the former teams that I'd built when I prepared to return to Nevada to get into the program. And I leaned into those teams and networked to find a job. So I started working in financial aid at a community college that was really close to the university. So for me, I think things really came full circle when I was part of a team to help our college at that time apply for federal recognition as a Hispanic Serving Institute, or HSI. And my role on this team of people was specific to providing financial aid data and analysis to ensure that we met certain requirements. We also spoke at our state legislature and advocated on behalf of non-US citizens and undocumented and documented students. And we were working together as a team to support students who didn't know that we were working on their behalf. When I started my doc program, I was a first-generation scholar still, but I was wise by this time about how colleges worked. So I knew that if I was going to be successful, I needed to form 2 specific teams. One of them was a group of moms who were also working full-time and in our program. We didn't have cohorts, so we made our own. We would babysit each other's kids. We planned what classes we were going to take. We studied together. We cried together. We raged together. We edited each other's work. And after 4 years, we walked together. And the second team I built was supposed to be short-term. It was for a specific evening of networking, because you don't know unless you ask. And when I asked people who identified as women who we saw in leadership positions to come and talk with aspiring women leaders in our program, all of them said yes. The advancement officer, our president, our vice chancellor of the system, they said yes, and they showed up. And for one night, we were a team of people committed to a goal of empowerment and shared community. And these two teams, along with my dissertation committee, got me through school and across a finish line that's not crossed by many who look like me. And that led me here to join this team, where I get to work with a fabulous team of people. It hasn't always been easy, but anytime you join a new team, there's a shift and there's a change in the existing team and in the dynamics. So there will be challenges and opportunities to both adapt and commit. And as a new student to Evergreen, you are joining a team of people who are committed to your success as a student and committed to each other to be good colleagues. We recognize that you are more than a student, and that you too are part of different teams outside of Evergreen. I can share that outside of Evergreen, I'm on Team Smith. Team Smith comes first for me. My spouse's last name is Smith. I took his last name because the prejudice and racism and very real threats of being separated from our kids if our last names don't match is terrifying for me. So I completely leaned into that privilege. But Team Smith is my family team outside of Evergreen, and we make every decision as a team. Our goals are to have a loving, healthy family. We do weekly check-ins where we look at our schedule. We talk about budget. We talk about our faith and how we've served people that week. We talk about, did we make healthy decisions? We have a Team Smith meetings where our kids have a say and a voice in big family decisions. We have a Team Smith blog where I update our family and friends with stories and photos. There's a handshake, like it's a whole thing. We have t-shirts. We have family rules for being on Team Smith. As a result, there are some extended family members who can't be a part of Team Smith. One example, when we were getting married the night before our wedding, we sat down with family members and told them that our friends, our chosen family, some were in same-sex couples and relationships, and they would be celebrating with us and laughing and dancing and kissing like every other couple. And if they couldn't handle that, they need not attend, because Team Smith believes in the value of every person. So we hope that's what we're teaching our kids. When I was graduating and working at TMCC, we created the Team Smith Scholarship to support students who are working parents as a way to give back, because I have been supported with scholarships as a working parent. And that's the only qualification. You're a student and a parent. We get to read applications, and as a team, we weigh in on who gets the scholarship every year. So that's what Team Smith is about for me at home. And I carry a lot of that and those values into my work. So I just have 2 more slides. The first is a list of lessons that I'm still learning. When I say it took a team to get me here and get me through, and that it's going to take a team to keep me going, I mean that. It's a reminder that there's a lot of things happening at once. There's the team, so there's the teamwork, and then there's the work that I'm doing as part of being on a team. We don't do it alone, but we still do the work. There were people on my team and I didn't know it. As a student at Evergreen, there are people on your team working to support you, lift you, cheer you on, hold you accountable, and we're all working behind the scenes to ensure that your team is successful. I learned that a team is more than a group of people working towards a goal. It's a community invested in the success of a lot of teams so that together we can create a better world. I'm learning still that teams take many shapes and forms. And then, the most obvious teams are student clubs or athletic teams, but there are these teams we don't view as teams that are a part of our everyday life. And I think there's an opportunity to intentionally think about what teams we serve on, what teams we lead, where we put our energy. Some teams have a time limit. That's okay. Recognizing that today, in this moment of working remotely and quarantining and racial reckoning, you might need to cultivate a team to help you process, grieve, celebrate, plan, and just get through this moment. There are many roles on a team, and we move back and forth and all around between them. So having team boundaries, roles, values, and agreements can help make that movement more fluid and meaningful. On our student activities team, we did a values exercise a few years ago, and it confirmed that we were all working from the same set of values. And they're reflected on our website: transparency, equity, inclusion, mentorship, fiscal responsibility, and fun. And we use these values all the time in conversation, in planning, as a place to return to when we have questions, as a check for accountability, when we look at our programs and services, as a way to share with students why we might make certain decisions. At home on Team Smith, we have an agreement that we won't make a purchase over a certain amount without talking to each other first. And this helps us with our financial goals and ensures we're on the same page with our spending. So I leave you with a few questions for you to think about. Who is on your team? And more importantly, are you on your own team? And if not, why? What would it take for you to believe in you and believe in your own team? Who is not on your team? Not everybody is meant to be on your team or has the ability to be. Growing up, I really wanted my dad to be on my team, and he couldn't. And that's not my fault or anyone's, but it took years of therapy for me to get to a place of understanding you can both have people in your life and create boundaries for what their involvement on your team looks like. What team do you need this quarter to be successful as a student? Who in your circle can you go to for help or just to listen? Or when technology fails? Do you need to expand that team? Are there resources or people at Evergreen who could be on your team? There are tutors and faculty and staff and the Writing Center and the Math Center and the Student Help Desk. We're full of people who have been training to be on your team. And we will use our extensive and collective knowledge, expertise, skills, and compassion to be on your team. Even when you don't call us, even when you don't see us, we're here. And finally, what are you going to do to work on yourself so you can be a good team member for others? As a student, you have access to resources and people and time that can contribute to your own growth and development. As an undergrad, I didn't know how to solve certain problems and issues, but each time I took advantage of a resource, I got stronger and more confident and better at handling issues that came my way. I invested in building a team of people around me, and in doing so, I invested in myself. So I'll say part of that self-work is taking time to really think about who you are and where you want to go. And now's a good time for me to pass it on to Cholee to talk about just that. Thank you for your time and for listening to my story and my thoughts on building a team and that little twist that we took. Feel free to reach out if you want to talk about student activities or student affairs or grad school or anything else. I'll put my email in the chat, and I wish you best of luck this quarter.
Hi, everybody. Give it up for Jeannette in whatever visual way you want to. Thank you, Jeannette. That was so wonderful. I just love learning more about your story, and it really segues well into what I want to talk about, which is pathfinding. And so what I'm going to do is share my screen. So I just want to express gratitude to Marsha Tate Arunga for inviting me and in such good company with Dr. Jeannette Smith, and also just for this wonderful lecture series that I've really been enjoying. Every time I tune in and connect with Tacoma folks, it's like a warm hug. And so I'm really honored to be with you all today. So what I want to do is give us a segue into, we just heard just beautiful stories about Jeannette's path and thinking about team building and thinking about what you want to bring into your future and how you want to design your life and your path. So what I want to do first is just introduce myself a bit so you have a sense of what a part of my story is, and then we'll kind of transition into talking about your work, your identity, thinking about a sense of belonging for your work. So I want to tell you that my name is Cholee Gladney. I use she, her pronouns. I am an Evergreen graduate, class of 2000 at the Olympia campus. I'm a non-traditional aged. I was a non-traditional age student when I entered Evergreen, first gen. I was a transfer student from a community college in Seattle. I come from the Seattle area. And my story is a bit of a winding path, as so many of our stories really are. The more you talk to people about their professional life path stories, the more you really realize that most of us don't have a linear path that goes from A to B to C, and then we're here. They truly are circular, winding paths, and that is, I think, for many of us, many students especially, kind of a bit of a relief that you don't have to have it all figured out. There are ways that you can design your path that are true to you and yourself. So I want to tell you that, after I went to Evergreen, I studied cultural studies at Evergreen, which is very broad, I know. I did most of my studies in Native American and Indigenous tribes of the Northwest and African, West African studies. One of the seminal experiences of my time at Evergreen was traveling to West Africa, to Ghana, to do a study in dance and music, which was life-changing. And I really can't tell you enough how much that impacts my life today. So the experiences you have as students really can shape you and change you. After that, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I ended up doing a AmeriCorps position working in Hood Canal School on the Skokomish Reservation, which was really an incredible experience. It was meant to let me know if I wanted to be a teacher or not. Obviously, I learned I didn't want to be a teacher, but the most wonderful thing was being able to connect with the students, especially, our students who come from Indigenous backgrounds. I was reading with students, I was helping them read. And when I trace what was the thread that wove through a lot of my time in school, I was reading these wonderful picture books to students, and I was connecting with the visual imagery. So you'll hear a little bit more about my path in terms of images and visual art. And I think that, to me, as I look back, was really the connection that I was making, as well as just culture and learning about people, learning about traditions has always been an interest to me. So after that, I went to a small craft college in Oregon, and I learned sort of my craft of drawing and painting. And I came to it very late in life. I was not one of those kids who was recognized for their artistic talent. And so, but I recognized that in myself. And I had a few mentors who also recognized that in me. And that turned out to be a very fruitful experience as well. And I take those learnings with me. After that, I started working in student affairs at St. Martin's University right down the road here in Lacey. I worked helping students with their writing, and I happened upon a wonderful mentor, Leticia Nieto, who sort of the way that she is made me want to be around her. And so I chose to be in her program, the Master's in Counseling program at St. Martin's University. And, I had never even had an inkling that I was interested in psychology, but it turns out that I'm a helper and a healer. And, sometimes life just tells you what the next steps are. So I did graduate from SMU, and I am a trained counselor. I decided not to go into counseling, so another kind of veer off, but I do use a lot of my therapeutic work with students. I want to say thank you to Natasha for calling me Dr. Gladney. That sounded really good, but I have not yet gotten a doctorate, but my story's still being told, so you never know. So I wanted to say I came back to Evergreen in 2013 to work in advising, and it turned out to be just the place for me to use kind of my generalist, all of my interests in supporting students. And what I've learned, I want to share with you today. What I've learned in the 6 years that I had worked in advising was really about the sort of deep meaning around work, whether it be career path, just getting a jobby job, as some of our students say, or, life path finding. What I learned was how deep that work is. And I want to share with you a couple of those lessons today. So I became the Dean of Inclusive Excellence and Student Success about a year ago. Was this my life goal? It never was. And yet here I am, and I do feel I'm making an impact with the students I work with and in our institution. So I want you to think of path not as I make this goal and then I have this goal and that's it. It's easy. It might be nice if it was that way. But the good news is that it allows you to grow and change and move and shift and adjust and use all of your strengths that you do have in each role that you're in. So I am all of those things of my life path, but to be in a more holistic way, I am a Black woman, a Black multiracial woman. I am in my mid to upper 40s. I'm 47. That's who I am. I'm a mother of a 5-year-old named August, and he's starting kindergarten this historic fall, whatever that means. I'm also, as I said, a visual artist. I've been a vocalist, and I, like you, have so many other interests that give my life meaning. So I want us to think of career path as this holistic engagement in what we do, not just the job we go to, which is important, but the places and the people and the things, the constellations that make us who we are. So this image that you're looking at here on the left side of the screen is a collaboration that I participated in with 2 other artists who you may know, local artists. It's a collective called Black Well Red Thread. It's down at Capitol and 4th, and it in downtown Olympia, and it'll be up until the end of the year. So this is a empty storefront. There are several empty storefronts that are filled with art now in downtown Olympia, so I encourage you to go by and take a look. The artists are Shamika Gagne, who is an Evergreen student, and Aisha Harrison, who has taught art at Evergreen Olympia. And these 2 were all people of color. We all have an ancestor connection to Africa. And what we hoped to do in this, and it's called Star Bridge to Your Door. What we hoped to do in this installation was create kind of an honoring of our ancestors, that long path that they traveled to get us here, and then thinking about ourselves and their legacy, ourselves as descendants, and then these strings representing really our connections to the past, to the present, to the future. Shamika says our future ancestors, which I love. So, you know, for me, being an artist is about seeing the world visually, and it's about just acknowledging that that is the way that I move through the world. It's the way that I see things. It's one of my ways of knowing. It's a very important way of knowing for me. So for years and years and years, I really, wasn't sure what that meant. What is an artist? Do I have to be an artist? And now I know from living a little longer and meeting other artists that it's really a way of seeing and of making meaning in the world. So I share that with you. Okay, so I have a lot of slides to get through. Let's see what we can do. I want to start with a poem called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes behind you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. Must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying, here. No 2 trees are the same to Raven. No 2 branches are the same to Wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. So, have you ever felt lost? I think we all have. Maybe you feel lost now. Imagine yourself relaxing into this and asking what this moment can teach you. I would ask, are you ever really lost, as kind of the poem does? And how can we create conditions for our answers to find us? So I have some what ifs. And this is for the sort of career path, life path journey. What if there isn't one perfect career job or position out there for you? What if instead of constantly striving to find your life's calling, you answered the many calls that inspire and speak to you? What if you were able to see yourself solidly planted in your own values and identities, but flexible enough to move with change and be ready for what you enter into? What if rather than thinking of the one perfect job, you got started on designing a holistic or a whole life that met your needs, interests, and desires? What if the process of finding your path was actually an endless pleasure of curiosity, growth, and learning? We can do that. Do you feel the pressure decreasing a little bit? That's what I want to encourage us to tap into as we think about career, life path, work. It's a learning oriented or growth oriented mindset rather than I know this already, or I'm trying to get this knowledge. It's abundant. It's thinking about abundance versus scarcity. One of my mentors says, can you be curious and anxious at the same time? Probably not. If you're getting some anxiety about the career path, then step back and tap into what you're curious about. So one of the reasons I do that is that I really want people to think about just their kind of, where do they sit on the anxiety scale of thinking about work? And in my work with students, what I see is that a lot of our students have this high anxiety about work, you know, and it helps to think a little bit more abundantly about the path. So I want to just introduce this idea of what is this work thing that we're always talking about? Have we thought about where that even comes from? Have we thought about what is work? What are these terms we use? Job versus career versus life purpose. Are these different things? Are these all the same thing? Who or what was our construct of work influenced by, right? So our parents, a lot of times, whatever they imprinted on us about what is work, we tend to inherit that. Thinking about our cultural work history for our own selves and our ethnicities and our races, but also our popular culture. What do we value in terms of work? And then just stepping back and saying to ourselves, you know, what do we really want out of our work? How can we redefine what work is to us? And I'm going to call this contacting hope. So Jeannette alluded to this, and I do want to say that right now we are in this moment where we're rethinking so many things. We're learning more deeply about our history, and we're acknowledging that history in a practical way. And then we're also deciding what our hopes are and what we want our future to be. I would argue we can do the same thing with work, right? We can think about historically who has been left out, and we want to think about how we want to enter into work. So let's talk about the myths that we internalize about work, all these sort of imprints that we get. And just to say that these myths really impact us when we're looking for work and we are not aware of them. And so my work as a trained therapist is to really make the unknown known. And this is no different in career path work than it is in sort of internal personal work. So it's intense work. It's kind of juicy for me. I kind of like it. So I want to talk to you about the myths we internalize. So you must know what you want to do like right now. Okay. We've all felt that pressure. It comes to us when we're very young. That question of, what do you want to do when you grow up? Right? We've all heard that. Why do we ask kids that? Like they will know, you know, it's this cute question, but it tends to create this pressure. You know, when I was a child, I remember saying that I wanted to be a marine biologist, and people laughed at me. They thought that was so cute because I think I was like all of 6 years old or something. I watched a lot of Jacques Cousteau with my grandmother is probably where that came from. And in fact, I did later decide to take some classes in marine biology and biology, I learned that I'm not scientifically minded. I am not one of those linear thinkers. But it's interesting now. What I find is I have a love of the ocean and the beauty of the ocean, and those images come up in my work, in my artwork. So there is always a thread. There's always a thread, and you'll see that later. Interestingly, my son, we tried not to ask him this because I knew it was not a great question, but he brought it home from childcare. He said, "This is what I want to be, Mommy." And I said, "What?" He said, "I want to be a mom." I thought that was the best. And we'll see, you know, how does that manifest as he grows? You know, you can only choose one thing. This is just the worst for someone like me and people that I've met who have so many interests. It's a lot of pressure. You really learn after talking to so many people that you know, people choose to be different things at different times in their lives, to do different things because our growth and development, and also because of, you know, forces outside of ourselves, technology, changes in the workforce. We know that most people have at least 5 different careers in their lifetimes. So please don't let that make you feel pressure to choose one thing. I would say that the reframe for this is my interests and skills evolve and change as I grow and learn, and I can choose what is right for me right now and change course as I move through life. Okay, so there's reframes for these myths. You don't have the skills you need to be successful. This is the scarcity mindset. When people are engaged in a job search, oof, watch out. This is sort of getting internalized. I might not be good enough for this, right? So what we want to reframe that as is that I have skills. And in fact, most jobs that you will get are not specialized skills you'll need. Many of us know this, having been in the workforce for a long time. It's something called transferable skills, right? So these are things like communication. These are things like collaboration, like Jeannette was talking about earlier. These are things like creativity. So you may need to pick up some skills along the way, but you are never devoid of skills when you enter into a job search or a career path. So remember that. And then this one is so important. You must become someone else to fit yourself into the role. This is absolutely what many of us feel when we think about, can I do that? Is that for me? Right? There is such a thing as a good or a better fit. But there's also what we want you to know, what I want you to know is that you belong and you can bring your full self to work. Now, I'm not going to pretend that everybody at work is going to throw their arms open. We've all been there where we felt like we didn't belong. But what I want you to know is similar to what Jeannette said, you can find your team, you can find your people, you can create conditions within those bigger environments that maybe feel like places that you don't belong, where you can feel a sense of belonging with your mentors and your the people that you bring around yourself. So we do internalize those myths. Some of those myths are operating because we are this constellation of these different ways of being and inherited attributes. And it is really important for us, I just want to stress, that we think about that before we move into a career path, life path, or while we move into that. The important thing is not to get caught up with the labels and they go on and on and on, but to think about ourselves and who we are and how that can impact our decisions and our choices. So in this way, it's a search for identity. Work is a search for identity, and it shapes our identity. So what I want to emphasize here is just for us to explore that, think about that. So I have a couple of examples of this sort of idea of how work does impact identity, and the work that we choose sort of can sometimes change our identity. So this is a farm called Soulfire Farm in upstate New York. And this founder, Leah Penniman on the left here, has created this incredible opportunity for people of color to reconnect with the land, because she says that our connection, especially Black people, our connection with the land can be heavily influenced by this time in our slavery, this time in our history. And so what I love about what she's done here is that she's honored the fact that people have this reaction to seeing Black and brown people kind of, she says, bent over the land, and they have this immediate, because of the trauma, they have this immediate association with slavery. What she says is they engage in traditional healing modalities such as song, storytelling, and dance, herbal baths and things, to work through that trauma, and they reach back before slavery to thousands of years of dignity on the land. It's beautiful, and it's gorgeous, right? And it really does speak to her using her identity to find a life path that connects on a deeper level, and not erasing the past, but telling the true story of the connection that Black and brown people, and really, if you think about it, all people have had with the land for a long, long time. So I wanted to give that as just an example of how identity kind of intersects with work. I have another example, and many of you may have seen the Chef's Table on Netflix. It's such a wonderful docuseries. All of the chefs they sort of profile do tell their life stories and how they became chefs, which is very winding for a lot. So I recommend that. So this is the story of Mashama Bailey, owner and executive chef of The Gray. So her story is really interesting. She decided to be a social worker like her parents were. She failed miserably at it. It wasn't the right work for her. And through this kind of self-discovery, she kind of found herself in the kitchen through connecting with her ancestry and her family. And interestingly, she changed this Greyhound bus station to be it was a segregated bus station, to be her sort of restaurant. And she says, my ancestors were here and so many struggles have happened in this building. I felt a connection. I just let that take me with it. I knew I was on the right path. So there is a sense here that she, and she talks about soul food. She has done something really different with what you consider Black cuisine, and that she's mixed it with other cuisines. She says that she doesn't want people just thinking of the typical stereotypical soul food. She wants to do something different with it and envision it, which I think is really beautiful, and it's really about who she is. So these two examples are really of this. I want to talk about the spiral nature of pathfinding, and I want to talk about this. I want to keep emphasizing this sort of, it's not a fork in the road. I must choose, right? That's a lot of pressure. It's this or that. It's more of a spiral. It's more of a coming back around. And for those of us who've been working for a little while, we know that we're never all the way done. We're still walking. So whether we're at the beginning and we're trying to figure out our paths, whether we're sort of in the middle and we have maybe a shift in our values or growth or development, or who knows, or whether we're really more towards the end of our working career, so our paid maybe working career, but we're thinking about what is our life path after this. So those are developmental walks that we're doing, and really asking that question, what are you walking your path with? And how that can really help you tune into the type of work and the type of environment that you want to engage in. I walk my path with heart, resilience, humor, and abundance, and any position that I take is going to hopefully honor those parts of myself that really need to be honored, and that's going to make me feel like I have a sense of belonging and I'm in the right place. So let's think about resourcing, reclaiming, and recovering. I really want us to think about what inspires us, what are our current obsessions? As Jeannette said, who's on my team? Love that. We did not plan this, but who's on my team? You know, we always want to be thinking about that. What are my strengths that you come with so many important parts of yourself already, that you're not an empty vessel, that you're full already. What am I worthy of? Let's really think deeply about that. What holds meaning for me when I'm thinking about my next path? And who or what do I want to surround myself with? So we can resource ourselves, we can reclaim some of these ways we've been imprinted, and we can recover or uncover some of these ways that will help us find our meaningful work. So I want to, this is almost my last slide, and I want to leave you with this wonderful poem that for some of us who really like answers, it might be a little annoying, but for those of us who really enjoy the mystery, the path is made by walking. Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. Traveler, the path is your tracks, nothing more. Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. By walking, you make a path. And turning, you look back at a way you will never tread again. Traveler, there is no road, only wakes on the sea. We're making this path, and you know, maybe you yourself are the map, right? So I've got to tell you about our resources because you're gonna wanna connect with our wonderful advisors. So we do academic and career planning support for all students, and we work with alums. So after you graduate, if you want to connect about grad school, resume, what you need, feel free to do that. We have, because of this COVID environment, we have actually increased our access, which is interesting. So that's some of the good parts of COVID. So we do Zoom drop-ins. Please check our website for that. If you want to know more about how to conduct an informational interview, which are basically listening to stories from people who are doing cool stuff that you might want to do, or you just want to listen to stories, we have some information about how to conduct those on our website. You can always call us. We're there for you. Our advisors are very skilled at being with you through those tough questions and those kind of inner dialogue that you have with yourself when you do career path work. I have my contact information there. I'm happy to talk with folks, and I love giving informational interviews. So please reach out if you'd like to talk more. And thank you so much for having me. Really, this has been my pleasure.
So fascinating. There you have it. Let's just give some energy to our last two speakers, or our first two speakers, Dr. Jeannette Smith and Dean Cholee Gladney. Just show them some love on the screen. Well done. How awesome that was. Thank you so much. Leah, are we ready?
Yes. Hi. My name is Leah Wilkins. I am the Writing Center Coordinator for the Tacoma campus. And I just want to say thank you very much to Dr. Jeannette Smith and to Cholee Gladney for those very informative presentations. Those were great. And I would like to invite our special guest, Tara Hardy, to say a few words or offer a gift back.
Wow. That was incredible. I'm still spinning. I feel like I've thought that I'm done with my education, but after this presentation, I'm so not. I'm so on the spiral path. Wow. So, which, you know, it's not about me, but thank you for all of that. I just want to say to both of you, I so appreciate the vulnerability, which is to say leadership, that you give us in community. The way that you both led with your hearts, it's just so clear how much you love community and you love us to give us the things that you gave us today. And I feel like what I took away, if I were a prospective student at Tacoma, is I guess I want to say to prospective students that it's really clear based on these presentations that Tacoma wants to be your team. If you are looking for a team, Evergreen Tacoma is the place. And to think about building your holistic career, because you will learn things you didn't even know about yourself. Those
Yes.
tender little hopelings that you don't even know are in you are going to bloom.
Yes.
And I absolutely agree with both of you that we do have life purpose, that each one of us is here to give a unique contribution to humanity.
Yes.
And I cannot think of a better place than Evergreen Tacoma to pursue that. So thank you so, so much for those presentations and for letting me be here with you today.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Tara. This is Marcia Tatarunga. I also just want to chime in. Dr. Smith, the story that you told reminds me of Nelson Mandela's story, how he spent 26 years in prison, so resilient. And he was able to do that because of his ancestry. He knew that he came from that greatness, that he was a leader, whether he was in prison or not. And that is the story you shared with us, that you knew you had a destiny, whether or not you were living in hard times with your family. You knew who you were. And I just so honor that. And also, who better to teach us about team building than someone who was able to resource teams to not only survive, but to thrive. This is the story of all people. You know, we can hear a story and it can bring us down and we can say, well, I guess it's never, I'm never destined to do anything. Or we could take the same story and we can become great people. And that is what you demonstrated. So I so appreciate that. Dean Cholee Gladney, my goodness, you have just reminded me of the beauty of aligning yourself with your career. Your work, your job is all one thing, and it is indeed a life purpose. How we need to go on that journey. You have just given us so much insight. And the way of knowing, I think I'm going to take that from you. The idea that we have many ways of knowing. And we all have an artist in us. So we need to nurture that artist, because that artist is also bringing information to us about our life journey. And I so appreciate that. And by the way, I studied something very similar, so we should compare notes. And narrative inquiry is one of my specialties. So I think we're on the same wavelength. What beautiful depth you both brought to this community. We're so grateful. Leah, do we have anyone else who would like to give back before we move to our esteemed author in residence?
Yes, we do. Cassandra, would you like to go ahead and do give back?
Unmute.
There we go. Yes, I did want to do a give back. I'm a graduate. I graduated in just this June. So I joined in because I kind of want to piggyback off what I think it was Tara just said. Being an Evergreen graduate, I miss that community feeling and that learning new things. So I tuned in this morning because I never got to hear those the two ladies speak while I attended Evergreen. And so I really wanted to hear, because I've never attended a lecture at Evergreen and not taken something away from it and not grown with it. And so I appreciate the two ladies today. I'm starting my master's at UW in a few weeks. And sometimes I doubt myself and I question if I can do these things. And then I hear strong women like that. And it reminds me that I too have a story. And I too can do this. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. I needed this today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Cassandra. What a wonderful, wonderful thing you have done. And just wishing you so well in your journey. Well done.
I don't. Does anyone else have a quick give back to give? Would anyone else like to say something to thank our guests or speakers? Natasha.
I just wanted to say thank you guys for sharing what you did today. I think that you both brought something different to the table. It expanded our thinking in those terms of who we have on our teams, how as a village that we are a team already, and how having you guys as part of our village is just it's a great experience. And Cholee, thank you for sharing that information about paths and realizing that they're not linear, that they don't have to be detailed out, and it's okay when they're not, and it's okay to change. Because I think as adults, we think that they're supposed to be so structured. We're used to seeing the previous generations having been in the same job for 30 plus years, and so we think that that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I think that it's super helpful to know that it's okay to be fluid and it's okay to have different identities while you're in your work. So thank you for that. I think that's a very important thing to remember as we get stuck in a world that always tries to box us in. So thank you so much.
Natasha, you raised something really critical about the last generations and the current generation. We watched our older people having full life careers in one job, and then they get a pin and they graduate. I mean, they retire after 50 years, but we are not living in those times. And so even our career lifespan is shorter, and we may have 3-4 career paths. And so an education at Evergreen really does bring us the liberty, it gives us permission to explore many paths and to change them. And I think that's a very important way to move in these times. Thank you for that. All right. Well, I think we are ready to shift a little bit to our next speaker, who is our own author in residence, TaRessa Stovall. She is an alumni of Evergreen State College, actually Olympia, but she still claims Tacoma, and we claim her. She's the author of over 9 books, and we have arranged that she will tell us all about that in one of our final virtual lecture series. So we get to know so much more about another fabulous career. But for now, we bring you our esteemed author in residence, TaRessa Stovall. Hello, TaRessa.
Greetings. Hello, everyone. I want to thank everybody for their powerful stories and their powerful truths, sharing that, and just really beautiful. I want to tell you a little bit about me. Background, I'm Seattle native, born and reared in the pre-gentrified central area. I like Cholee Gladney's description. I'm a Black multiracial woman. I've just written a book about that. But, and I'm always been a non-traditional learner, so I suffered through K through 12, and I enjoyed 2 years at the University of Washington, but I knew it wasn't a fit. So I am a proud graduate of Evergreen, and definitely of Evergreen Tacoma. Very definitely that. So, and I graduated several decades ago. And one of the things that, just to speak to Dean Gladney's, beautiful spiral reference, I'd be surprised that anybody who was inclined toward a linear career would be attracted to Evergreen in the first place, but you never know. So I think it's really powerful how you pull that all together and brought in identity and purpose, and the fact that, as we're all saying, I'm probably on my 14th or 15th career right now. So, that's just the world we live in, and Evergreen does a fabulous job of preparing you to learn, to adapt, to punt, to be flexible, to be fluid, and when times change, to change with them or even a little bit in front of them. So that's my pitch. One of my pitches for the Evergreen State College. I'm a lifelong writer. I'm an author, journalist, blogger, all-around rabble-rouser, kind of an activist. And so this is my 3rd week of sharing what I call professional tips on finding your writing voice. What I was asked to do was come on and do these sessions on how you can find your writing voice. Thank you, Trey. And these are just some things that people do. And these aren't, this isn't the stone coming down from the mount. These are just, I try to be a little bit playful and share things that myself and other authors do, regardless of how long we've been writing, regardless of how many times we've been published, regardless of how many awards we won or anything else. Writing is always a journey. I refer to it personally as an initiation. You know, you're always learning, you're always growing, you're never finished, and you will always be challenged. So these tips are designed for some playful kind of ways to shake it up a little bit and help you to find your voice. That's another thing I think is really unique about the Evergreen experience, is that, you know, in more traditional educational systems overall, and with writing or any form of expressing yourself in general, you are often encouraged or required to conform to other voices, to meet other people's expectations, to speak or create the way they want you to, right? Evergreen is the opposite. Evergreen is all about helping you discover and nurture and amplify what is yours. And that's what I think our wonderful presentations from Dr. Smith and Dean Gladney so beautifully illustrated. So I'm really honored to come behind them and hope that this will find useful. So your voice, your truths are whispering from deep within your soul. Everybody has them. You are a story. You don't just have stories. You are a story. You are several stories, and your story is always relevant, always important, and always a source of empowerment, a source of nurturing, a source of healing, and a source of both teaching and learning simultaneously. All those things come from finding and expressing your voice. So this is one of the biggest challenges in any kind of writing. And I know I found this to share with you all, but I really loved it, from literary giant Anton Chekhov. I'm going to print it out and put it over my computer to help me with this. This is one of the hardest things to do in any kind of writing for anybody. I don't care who they are, because of course, writing is words. And you think of telling comes naturally, but then you're like, well, show me, right? And so show not tell is one of the most frequent pieces of criticism or critique or feedback you'll get, whether you're writing as an amateur or professional in any discipline. Show, don't tell. And you know, it kind of goes against what seems logical, but you push yourself. Show, don't tell. And I think this quote, which I was looking for something to share with you guys, is just perfectly encapsulates it. I want you to take a minute and take this quote in, because this is what writing is about. Okay, the moon was shining, you know. Okay, the moon was shining, but when you bring in that specificity, detail, it makes it believable, it makes it relatable, it makes it tangible, it makes it credible, and if you're really lucky, it makes it, for your reader, unforgettable. So that's the power of detail and specificity, and how we are all always taking this art form that seems organically opposed to showing, and pushing it and pushing it and pushing ourselves to show. So that's what we're going to play with today, different ways to show. One of the things we want to do is have you play with writing through your senses. And every week I talk to some professional writers I know about what I can share with you all. And this came through a lot. You know, I talked to a lot of writers who teach at the university level around the country. And one of the things they all do is some form of writing with your senses. You know, some of it is designed to get you out of your brain a little bit, out of your left brain a little bit, and to make your writing come alive, not only for yourself, but for whoever might be reading it. So here's one example that I just made up. And the shoulders drooped. That could be edited. It could be cleaner. But this is the first rough draft, so I just made this up for you. So describe an emotion. I felt sad. So you could write that. I felt sad. I was teary. Or you could force yourself, and it does take work, to try to make it sensory, make it physical, make it visual. Okay, this is just one example, and it can be improved, but I wanted to leave it in its organic form. It's just because you're not striving for perfection at this point in your writing. Perfection doesn't come until rewrites, and rewrites are way down the road from where we are now. So you're not worried about perfection right now. Please know that. Give yourself grace, give yourself, space to just create without judgment, and not striving for perfection, but just you're kind of going inside of yourself and trying to excavate, again, your voice, your truth, your story, your details, your specificity. Okay. So here's a fun little thing. We're going to talk about, take your 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste. What was the other one? Sight, sound, touch, taste. Smell. Thank you. Okay, so play with these. This is a game. These are just examples. You can come up with your own. You can play with these. If they don't work for you, do something else. Write descriptions using each of your senses. Your favorite season. What does it taste like? What does it smell like? Favorite flavor. What does it feel like? A taste you deeply dislike. What is that like when it hits your tongue? Different kinds of weather, the first blush of romance, the end of a love story, stepping out of your comfort zone into something really scary, the feeling you get when your electrical power goes out. In today's world, your reaction when your internet isn't working. I don't know about you, but I have a moment of freak out. I'm like, oh my God, I can't function, which is true. But then you got to kind of regroup and remind yourself that it'll probably come on as you're busy trying to call people. So those things, what happens to you? Those are just a few. As I said, make up your own. But the point is to dig into each of your senses. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? How does it feel? And ask yourself that over and over, and just keep pushing yourself, because all the answers are inside of you, I promise. They really are. And you just have to dig and excavate and kind of, sift for the gold nuggets, but they're all in there. You can trust that they're in there. They're inside of you. Every person is a creator, okay, just inherently by virtue of the fact that you exist and you're moving through the world. And so, again, play with your senses. Go throughout your day and tune in to, Monday, write down everything you hear. Tuesday, write down everything you smell. Wednesday, write down everything you see. Those kinds of things. But do it with a heightened awareness and extra mindfulness of that sense for different things, and write it down, because those are ways that you're connecting, you're building those pathways, to taking your sensory sensations and putting them into words, because we don't all think in words. I know that Tara Hardy, is an expert on neurodiversity, but we think in many different ways. We perceive in different ways. We sense things in different ways. And so that's one reason I'm giving you these playful exercises, to find the way that works for you. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's no better way. There's no worse way. All that matters is that it works for you, and that you kind of try different things to see what tickles your muse, right? And gets your creativity flowing. So here's another one. Decide what you want your reader to feel, right? Decide what you want your reader to feel. Be very intentional about that. I think a lot about television shows and movies especially. What I first became aware of this when I was 18 years old. Now you know how old I am. And I saw The Godfather, right? And everybody was talking about how Mario Puzo, the lighting was dark. It was so dark. It was between the lighting and the sound effects, they were designed to keep you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole movie, right? Throughout the whole film. You never relax and just chill, unless, of course, you've seen it 800 times like some of us and know every line. But when you first saw it, you were like, the whole time. That's deliberate. And of course, it's to do it with a multi-sensory media like film or video is one thing. To do it when all you're working with are words, that's a little different. So I want you to, again, play with it, but think about, write something with the specific goal of the person who reads this. I want them to feel elated. I want them to feel sad. I want them to feel betrayed. I want them to feel delighted. I want them to feel scared, fearful. I want them to be buzzing with anticipation. Pick your own. These are just suggestions. Pick your own, and then play with writing from your senses, right? To describe that particular feeling. Play with writing with your senses. So you could add regret, you could add panic, you could add bliss. What does revelation feel like, look like, taste like, sound like, smell like? Astonishment, dread. You come up with your own, But again, making a connection with your senses, so that if you want them on the edge of their seat, you got to write them to the edge of their seat, and you got to keep them on the edge of their seat. Okay, if you want their heart racing when they're reading, then you've got to write in a way that makes their heart race. If you want them to feel all warm and fuzzy and ooey gooey when they're reading, then you got to write that warm, fuzzy, ooey gooey. Okay, just so whatever it is, just play with writing with that goal. It's not what you feel. You should feel that writing it too. You know, they say in writing, especially memoir, autobiography, if you're not crying, your reader won't cry. So if you want them to cry, make yourself cry. Okay. And we cry a lot when we're writing anyway, for various reasons. But again, this is a way to play with and find your truths, find the things that work for you inside. And then finally, I want to kind of flip the script. So in today's world, as we know, we have lots of ways to communicate. And we have emoticons or emojis, right? And different things. And they're wonderful and we use them. And they're very cute. And they're a language all to themselves. But what they do is they stand in for words. Right? They stand in for words. They become a shorthand as a whole. And of course, the younger you are, the more you're probably using them and the less you're potentially using words. So what I want to do for a fun exercise is flip this. Now, pick your favorite emoticons from this or any other group and write them using sensory writing. So use your senses to write what one of these feels like, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. Right? All of them, if you want to give yourself a real exercise. Through your senses, use one sense for each one. So that again, in today's world, we're relying more and more on, we have avatars and we have emojis and emoticons, etc. They're great, they're wonderful, but they could also be used if you look at them in the reverse way and say, well, how do I take one of these and turn it into words? How do I express, one of these in words? And I want you to play with that. And do 5 to 10 of them or more, and just see if that kind of, again, gets you sparked, gets your creativity flowing, gets you moving in that direction. So those are some of this week's prompts we want you to play with. And yes, and as Leah says, bring back your writing from the exercises, and we can cheer you on, and I'm sure you will think of many more creative things. These are just designed to kind of get your juices flowing a little bit. And go forth. And the main thing is, I want to tell you, show yourself grace. Show yourself grace. I've said this before, and I'll say again, writing is, for most of us, hard work. I have a sign over my computer. It's a quote from another literary great, Nathaniel Hawthorne, that says, excuse my language in advance, easy reading is damn hard writing. That the harder you work on the writing, the better read it is for your reader. Okay, there's no exception to that rule. And so if you're not bloodied and beaten and bowed and sweat dripping as you're writing, it might not be quite as easy a read as it could be. That all happens in rewrites. It doesn't happen at this stage. There's no need for perfection, judging, or critique at this stage. We're just getting your muscles going. We're trying to find your paths to creative connectivity that get you going, that work for you, that help you find your voice. So give yourself grace. Give yourself space. One of my really good friends, brilliant, very well-known writer, Dr. Stacy Patton, talks about writing without fear. Write without fear, edit with love. But write without fear. And so I'm working to help you get to the point where you write without fear. Your work is not supposed to be good yet. It's not supposed to be perfect, impressive, pretty, grammatically correct, or ready for consumption yet. It has to go through a process. That's called edits and rewrites and feedbacks and proofreading. That's later. Right now, we just want to get you juiced up. We want to help you find ways to connect with your voice and create that flow so that you're able to express yourself in a way that begins to work for you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, TaRessa. That was awesome. Yes, so I put it in the chat. TaRessa also said, but I will just restate that we're going to stay on after the lecture for about 15 minutes. So anybody who wants to talk about writing, ask questions about writing, please feel free to stay on, and you'll have time to ask questions or just, chat. That would be fantastic. So we have a few minutes for questions right now. So if anybody has a question for TaRessa, that would be fantastic. Just raise your hand and I will call on you. Kind of just sift through the gallery here and see if there are any raised hands.
And maybe also Tara has a comment or two.
I'd love to start us off. First of all, I'm so glad to meet you, TaRessa.
Great to meet you.
I want to say thank you to thank you for writing as an initiation. Yes, yes, yes. The fact that we are always growing in this field. The way I put it is sometimes not so academic, but I think about it as the sweetheart who can never break up with me because it's constantly evolving. I'm constantly learning and growing with it. I want to thank you also for people are a story. I think so often our paths to speaking are the same kind of spirals that Cholee was talking about earlier. The path to finding our voices is that spiral, and that every person is a creator of our story. And then what you said at the end about grace and having grace for ourselves. I think that's such great advice for writers at any stage in our career, because I think those inner critics, you know, I think we all have them, right? Sometimes mine get really close to my eyeballs and they say things like, no one cares what you have to say, or you're not really a writer, you're a big faker, or whatever. And what I tell students when I'm working with them is, oh, congratulations, you found the guard to the treasure, because why would they be so loud if there wasn't treasure behind them, if they weren't guarding treasure? So what you said about grace and fear and just made me glad to be in the house of words with you, to serve in the house of words with you. So
thank you.
So
and yes, the same for you, Tara. Thank you. Yes, so it's true. I love that. Guardians of the Treasure. I'm gonna write that down. I'll put your name after it, of course. Guardians of the Treasure. That's so true. I mean, my gosh, you got to fight them off every time. I placate mine with dark chocolate, by the way. Just saying. My muse likes dark chocolate. And music, and music, and music, and music. And so that helps too to drown them out a little bit. I use music a lot. Yes. So, but you have to know, you reminded me of something, Tara, part of this for writing for everybody. 99% of writing, and I don't know about other forms of creativity because I'm kind of stuck in this one in life, is managing yourself. It's managing yourself. It's managing your imposter syndrome, your fears, your terrors, your what ifs. I have to tell you just briefly, I recently published a memoir. I am not a memoir writer. It doesn't come naturally for me. I've written nonfiction, fiction, journalism, all kinds of things, not memoir. It kicked my behind. It took 5 years. It was excruciating. At no point did I have any idea what I was doing. And I'm a very confident writer. Like super confident, really. And at no point did I have any confidence whatsoever that I had any idea what I was doing in the 5 years of writing this book. I had 3 rounds of beta reads, lots of edits, lots of proofreads. But even now, when people respond to it, I'm like, oh, wow, great, yay. If you were to ask me, what the book is in detail, I'd have to say, I wrote it, I reread it, people respond to it. I still don't have a lot of confidence about the actual writing because it took me so far beyond anything I've ever known or done. And I had absolutely zero confidence in any of it, which was completely new for me. I've never written without confidence before. This whole book is written without any confidence. So, and I had teachers, I read books on memoir, I read dozens of memoirs and used those as teaching tools. So I tried to get a lot of good voices in my head. One of the first weeks, both my children work in communications and publishing, and my daughter's advice is very simple: read, and she called it words in, words out. So I did a lot of words in, words out to help me learn to write memoir, because for some people it comes easily and smoothly. I don't ever want to do it again. I don't ever want to do it again. But that's the whole point, is that you all of these. And I know, Tara, you can attest, all these little exercise things I concoct or share with you or share from other writers, these are things we all do all the time. When you're writing, especially when you're writing on demand and you have to meet somebody's expectations, especially to get paid, meet a deadline, whatever it is, these are tricks of the trade, and they're tricks we use in the present tense, like any day, right? Any minute. Like last night, I was doing these PowerPoint slides. I was like, so what's my theme? And I, talked to my kids again, talked to a couple author friends online. I said, excuse me, can I, how about that? What do you do when you teach? What's the hardest thing? And they said sensory. And they're traditional academic institutions, so they have more hurdles to overcome than Evergreen gives you, I promise you. They're not paying me to show up for Evergreen, but I'm very serious about that. It really is an extraordinary experience in terms of finding and expressing, again, your inner truth, your path. I love the talk about paths and can so relate. So I think that, finding your voice is something I'm passionate about helping you do. So are there other questions?
Yep. See any raised hands? Anyone else?
Feed your muse chocolate. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever your muse responds to. Mine responds to dark chocolate and music and sometimes dancing. And if it gets really bad, Doritos, which apparently Prince used a lot, which is how I justify that. Because, if I can get anywhere near that level, we're good. Yes, and thank you, Marcia. And yes, thank you. To go back to Dr. Smith, your team. Good point. Thank you, Marcia. You got to have a team, whether it's other authors, friends who can beta read, but do so critically and objectively. But again, not at this part of the process. Not yet. It's premature. But who can give you informed, objective feedback, and that's a whole nother thing. But people who will cheer you on, people who will bring you or send you food, people or other things that you might need. So I know some things are legal in Washington State that aren't legal in Georgia, where I am coming at you from the ATL. Hey, but anyway, listen, whatever works, right? As long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else. But getting to know your muse is a big deal, right, Tara? How do you do it?
How do I get to know my muse?
Or how do you work with your muse? Yeah.
I am not a confident writer, actually. So what I do is I use my anxiety and grief to navigate. So I feel like I get up in the morning when it's a writing day and I feel my heart like it's an avocado and I look for the soft spots and then I follow them. I don't know if that's going to come across as an image, but I write towards the anxiety and I write towards the grief because I do find that what's hanging out there tends to have more resonance, wider resonance. And my question for you is how and where did you get confidence? Not that I think I'll ever get it, but I do wonder how people do.
I think you'll get it. So before you do that, y'all, did she just perfectly exemplify showing heart avocado? What was that? What? I'm like, girl, that was genius. Heart avocado, heart, right? Okay, yes. So can we give her, that was awesome. I'm like, heart avocado, ooh, that's sexy. That's why I like avocados. But how did I get confidence? So on one level, I think I was blessed. I spat literally my first poem out loud on a porch at 7 years old. And my mother said, that's really good. You should go write it down. 7 years old. And I did. And at that point, on that day, in that moment, I decided I was going to grow up to be, but I was in the present tense, a writer. And so after that, people are like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, oh, I'm a writer. And I wrote a lot of poems, angsty poems and all that kind of stuff, and some plays and some other things. Nobody told me I couldn't. And what happened was, sometimes as children we get labeled. So I got labeled early on as creative. And that worked because I was a strange child. And so the creative kind of fit in with the, strange and eccentric and all that. But she can write. It was like, but she can write. She's very strange, but she can write. And so I kept writing and I just kept putting it kind of in front of me. Like, if you want to understand me, read this, right? And so a lot of adults, I have to tell you, some of it came, I was just thinking about this today. I don't know if everybody is familiar with the legendary writer. One of my favorites as a child, Gwendolyn Brooks, African-American woman from Chicago. And I don't know, I was maybe 10, 11-ish, and she came to Seattle. And all I know is I took all of my little poems and I typed them up and I put them in a little binder with a cover note. And my mother schlepped me over to wherever she was. It was probably a library, but I don't remember. And I waited in line after 100 people. And I said, Miss Brooks, hi, I'm a poet. And I'd love it if you'd look at my work and tell me what you think. And she did. Like, she took this little book home with her to Chicago and she wrote me a lovely, I wish I could find it, I don't know if I have it, encouraging letter. So at that point, Gwendolyn Brooks, who was like beyond a god to me, was like, yes, you have to. And I mean, you know, she was doing what you do to kids, right? But it didn't matter. I didn't care. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm good. Now, that doesn't mean I'm always confident about what I'm writing. I think when I'm writing, I'm rarely confident about what I'm writing, unless it's in a very narrow, like I do a lot of marketing, PR, those kinds of things, I'm usually pretty confident because that's formulaic. But when it's my own writing, I'm never that confident, never, ever. I go through, I'm a rewrite queen. I go through multiple rewrites, even for a blog post, sometimes for a social media post, I rewrite 10, 12 times. So I think the confidence, Tara, comes from your team. Who's on your team, right? Who's on your team? And knowing that, and then also from people responding to your work. So setting up mechanisms for interactive kind of feedback, or just asking, hey, can you, and having it go beyond good or bad. And again, that's hard because we're conditioned. This is good, this was bad, da, 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 da. But how did that make you feel? What touched you? Like the whole avocado heart metaphor, where we were all like, what? What worked for you? What touched you? And asking people that, I think, because you're going to be so surprised. Like some of the things you were most emotional about, they'll be like, yeah, that was cool. And some of the things you were like really cavalier about, they'll be like, oh my God, I was on the floor. I threw the book across the room. You're like, oh, throw the book. That is actually if it's a book, that's the highest thing you can hope for, is that they get so upset they throw it down and throw it across. That's when you know, it's like an Oscar. But but asking for feedback, right? And encouraging people, how did that make you feel? Like, avocado heart, we were all like, oh my God, we got it. And it was so visual. So it was not just visual though, right? You had sight, you had taste, and you had feel. Didn't you all taste the avocado, feel the avocado, smell the avocado, taste the avocado, see it all at once? Yes. So I'm not ever going to get over that one, Tara. But so I don't know, but confidence isn't necessary. How about we talk about that? It's really, I just wrote a whole memoir with 0 confidence and people seem to like it. It's not really necessary, and I'll tell you why. You can fake the funk. What I focus on, and I continue to focus on it all the time, is skill building. Because talent is 1 to 2%. It's really negligible and it doesn't matter. Sometimes the most talented people don't develop the skills, and you can tell. So you're like, oh, potential, but I really can't read it because. So the skills, I focus on skill building, like muscle building, right? And I'm always working on more skills or bettering my skills, storytelling skills. That again, that's where these prompts come from. These are things that myself and other authors do, other writers, journalists, speechwriters, all of us do these things to push ourselves and to keep pushing. I think we live on the ledge when we're writing, Tara. So I would imagine you might not think you're confident, but maybe if you frame it a little differently. The other thing that works for me is reminding myself of my purpose, which goes to to Dean Gladney's, well, to both presentations really from today, is what is your purpose? What is your purpose? What is your purpose? Why are you writing this again? What is your purpose? What is your purpose? And having, there's the purpose, it's you. I want to express this. I want to make the world see, feel, do this. But then there's moving it beyond you to, again, think about what you want your reader to experience or do or think or feel or believe, right? As a result of reading this. So I don't know. I feel you on the confidence. I say also I'm confident because of experience, just because I've written and I wrote for so long for so many people in professional contexts. So there's a lot of muscle. There's a lot of muscle build. Jim Marshall will tell you, right? There's a lot of muscle build up there. So I really didn't start doing my own writing very seriously until I was in my 50s. But but the skills were there. So if I wanted to execute something, I might not be expert at it. And also another plug for Evergreen, but it's a very sincere one. The baseline that Evergreen either teaches you or nurtures in you that traditional education doesn't always do in the same way is it teaches you how to learn so that you truly are a lifelong learner. So that I was like, well, I can learn to write memoir. Okay, so now I'm starting a novel now, and for some reason my main characters are all the age of my very young 20-something millennial children. I am amassing a team, Dr. Smith, of 20-something people because I have no business writing. And it's in first person, which makes it especially crazy. But I am amassing a team of people who will make that work. They will help me. They will coach me. They will guide me. They will beat me up. They will love me up. They will be, yeah, mom. It's going to include my children, And it's going to be like, I've asked them for playlists and some of the music, y'all. Oh, Lord, it's painful. It's painful. But I listen to it because I'm trying to understand my 26-year-old character, right? So again, I put myself out on a writing limb, right? So I can torture myself for another couple of years, and I'll let you know how that goes. But do you see what I mean, Tara? So I have confidence in certain things. I don't have confidence that I can pull it off, but I'm also not relying only on myself. Like I'm putting the team together now, right? From day one. So I'm like, hey, if anybody's listening and wants to be on my team, holler. 30 and under. Thank you.
Do we have time for maybe one more question? One more? Does anyone else have a question, or just maybe want to do give back, let TaRessa know, some of your thoughts or what you really took away from what she offered today or shared today? Okay, well, I don't see any raised hands, so I will turn it over.
Why don't I just take this opportunity? Thank you, Leah, and thank you, TaRessa, for your beautiful words. You brought us back to the beginning, the need for a team, which Dr. Smith told us about. Absolutely. And it occurs to me that none of us can really succeed in our paths alone. We always need a team. And so you have brought it full circle in that, and so appreciative of that discussion between you and Tara about confidence. Because yes, maybe I have always seen you as a confident writer, TaRessa, and that was one of the things I thought about when you came to our community, that you would share your confidence, because I know that as students, if we can see that confidence and capture some of it, that's half the battle of our learning. So thank you for that beautiful dialogue between you. And I want to point out that that is the epitome of a learning community, because usually you have more than one teacher and they're talking to each other, and we have the benefit of observing, listening in, even weighing in on new knowledge as they're creating it between them. You both brought something, the idea that we are always learning, and that Evergreen has equipped us to be lifelong learners. It occurred to me in this talk also when I believe it was Dr. Smith who brought up the book about the Black farming and the trauma. That was Cholee. Cholee, that book reminded me of the trauma that is among mostly African Americans. Probably eventually in another decade, it will be experienced among Mexicans and Latinos. And certainly Native Americans have had that trauma over the land. And I know even to plant a garden in my yard has been a struggle. So this is so real. And I also equated that to mathematics, because there, now that my father, who was a mathematical genius during segregated times, and that now seems to be disappeared. The idea that we are geniuses in math. as African Americans, that's like a disappearing gift to the world, because we were the ones there. You've seen Hidden Figures and the like. So mathematics, it dawned on me, had the same kind of trauma. And also, there's a lot of that needs to be unpacked in the future. So thank you for the contribution of that book. I can't wait to read it. Well, this has been an incredible day. And if you have a moment, and if there's not any other words for TaRessa, we would like to close by inviting our student coordinator to introduce himself to you. Lionel Scott. See, I call him Lionel. Everybody else calls him Scott. So maybe you can go by both, but he's Lionel Scott. And Lionel Scott has been with us last year. He stepped up to the plate as a student activist. And I just really appreciate this day. All the words that have been spoken have led to you. So take a moment to introduce yourself, Scott. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Not sure I would call myself a student activist, but good afternoon, everybody. I am Lionel Scott. I am the Student Services and Activities Board Coordinator, also known as SNA, as I'm pretty sure most of you have heard. We are here to allocate funds for conferences, any clubs you may want to start, and we also have a childcare reimbursement starting in the fall and various other services that you'll learn as the time goes on. We are here for the students. You guys give us ideas of conferences or any fun activities that you would like to do, and our job is to figure out how to make that work for you, or anything that will help you progress and do well throughout the quarter within our grounds. And we also try to do quarterly events, so be on the lookout for that, and any thoughts and ideas that you might have, let us know and we will try to accommodate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, Scott, you have a military background. Which branch of the military were you in?
I'm the U.S. Army.
U.S. Army. All right. So we just welcome you. Go tell your Army friends that you are at Evergreen so we can get them over too. And a shout out to Dr. Jeannette Smith, who is the person who gives the orientation around SNA government. Oh, look at her family. The team Smith is clapping for Jeannette, their mommy. Thank you. What a lovely family. Happy to see you today. Yes. And Jeannette is the person who counsels our SNA. And so she's already been working with our SNA this year, and they are getting in gear to do amazing work like they did last year. So thank you, Lionel Scott. All right. And we will allow the final words maybe from our keynotes. And so just to say a thank you and maybe some final words from Dr. Smith.
I learned so much today from everybody. I'm so appreciative. I brought the family in to hear TaRessa and Tara talk because it was so powerful. And it reminded me of when I am trying to edit a paper, I'll give it to this Dr. Smith and I'll be like, I need you to be my cheerleader or my coach. And he'll ask me, well, which one is it? Because if I'm asking him to be my cheerleader, I just need the, oh, good job. This is good. I love this. You're doing so good. Hang in. But if I ask him to be my coach, he's like marking it up. There's red everywhere. It's real constructive. So sometimes I need to figure out like, what kind of feedback am I looking for? And that was just reaffirmed by what TaRessa and Tara were sharing. So thank you. And hearing Dean Cholee talk more about pathfinding really just, it touched me so much. And it felt like you knew what I was going through in this moment right now. And I'm just so appreciative of Evergreen Tacoma and cultivating this speaking series and this program. I've learned a lot from our first 2 lectures, with Ramona and Les, and I'm so excited and humbled to be a part of today and to learn more through the rest of the series. So thank you.
Thank you, and what a pleasure it has been. Dean Cholee.
Hi, everybody. I'm constantly amazed at the sense of community that Tacoma creates. I'm going to say even in the virtual space, but in some ways I think maybe it's easier this way in ways, so I want us to keep engaging. And with TaRessa, I'm reminded of not only the way that writing allows us to share with the world what we know, but the way that it allows us to learn. It's a way of learning. So you and Tara just really brought that back in, and I feel inspired to go write. So thank you. Thanks to Dr. Smith. It's always a pleasure. More collaborations to come.
Beautiful. And TaRessa?
Yes, I just want to thank everybody. This is so much fun for me, and I learn, that's, again, we're always teaching, learning, teaching. And I learn every week when I meditate on what I'm going to share in my session. I have something really exciting planned for next week. I just got it confirmed this morning. So you definitely want to tune in next week. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you're going to want to be here. And I have a surprise kind of guest person whose writing example I'm going to use to inspire you and to help you play with. I also wanted to say to Dr. Smith, when you're asking the other Dr. Smith, what I do when I want feedback is I literally tell them exactly what kind of feedback I want and what my goal is. My goal is to blah. Here's my thesis statement. Here's my goal. Here's my audience. Here's what I need from you right now. And when I do beta reads for manuscripts, they get it in writing. It's typed up with their name and thank you at the bottom. So I don't know how formal you want to be, but when you're asking all of you for feedback with your writing, at whatever point, be as specific and directed as possible, because otherwise people don't know. It's like you have to give them kind of a rubric to work with, and then they'll know what kind of feedback you need. They also will know whether they're the person to give you that kind of feedback, right? So, because you might, like I said, I'm putting together my under 30 people for my novel, because I have a couple friends who are like 35 and, well, I can help you. I said, yeah, maybe I'll put you on the B team, but I need some babies. Like, I need some children to read this and tell me if I'm on point and blah, blah, blah. Also, I'm watching lots of movies and TV with folks in that age group so I can immerse myself. Immersion learning, another evergreen concept that has worked well for me throughout my many careers. So I just want to encourage you to do that, and to again, y'all, give yourself grace and trust yourself. What you produce isn't supposed to be perfect. I want to really, really emphasize. We're going to talk about that more next week. We're going to talk about the wisdom of the raggedy first draft next week. But give yourself grace, give yourself space, love on yourself while you're writing. Let your team and your family love on you, and just go forth and know. I guess that's really my message. Go forth and know that whatever you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. And it is where you are is where you're supposed to be. And who you are is who you're supposed to be. And you are a gift. You're a story, you're a gift, and you're a blessing. So thank you for blessing me.
Oh, thank you. What beautiful words.
You're welcome.
And Tara, as our final visitor, I mean, our special guest, hasn't this just been a wonderful morning?
It's been incredible. One of the things that happens whenever I spend time in the Tacoma community is I just fill up with the desire to run after possibility and the belief that I can. And so all the things that happened today, thank you for the gift of having me with you today.
Yes. This has been a very special day. And I just want to say that we really are a village. When we talk about a learning community, we are a village. And right now in the virtual lecture series, we have faculty from Olympia, from Tacoma, we have community, we have alumni, we have students, and each one of you play a very important role in the function of Evergreen Tacoma. And our interconnectedness is so important. And as those prospective students are watching us today, we just want you to see the network that you would be a part of, that this is a village. This is not, I got told a story when I first came to Evergreen, this second time, I've been here before, but I got told a story that most schools tell you, look at your students next to you and look at your student to the right of you, and that student may not be here in a year. And at Evergreen Tacoma, we say, look at the student next to you to your left. Look at the student to your right. And if you don't see that student next week, get on the phone. Find out where they are, because something's going on. And we need to bring them back in because we are interconnected. And so we want to make sure that you see this, that it massages you, that no one person can get through this journey by themselves. Now, I'm still talking about Evergreen, not just life, but that's a life story too. We cannot get through our learning alone. We cannot be stingy with our knowledge, and we have to learn how to be open to accept assistance from other people. And when we do that, we have a real learning community going. And it just reminds me of the song that began, that we've come so far to be together. We've come a long way from wherever we came to join together. And as we join together for this learning, that each time that we're taking something with it, that now we're more full, we grow, and we can go share it with someone else. If we do that, our society, our communities will only be stronger through the love that we show with each other. So with that, we want to say thank you, everyone. Let's sign out today, but be back next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much. Those of you who would like to linger to speak to our writing coaches, and also Natasha for recruitment, please do so. We'll get you into a room. Have a fabulous rest of your week.